the Inner Game Podcast. Brought to you by the Science of Excellence. Presented by Rob Hume, the leading elite athlete mental performance coach. Unleash your power.
Okay, here we go. So I'd like to welcome on to the Inner Game Podcast, Ed Baxter. Thank you very much for coming on to the show today. I really appreciate you giving up your time, Ed.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into it, get chatting. So
the purpose of the podcast is, well, the title kind of gives it away, the inner game, and what I'm wanting to do with these podcasts is to delve inside the mind of up and coming athletes, current athletes, and former athletes, and find out more about how they deal with the mental and emotional challenges that come along with the physical side of sport, and look at, what are these challenges? How well athletes are able to deal with the mental and emotional side of it, and also to find out more about what kind of support athletes were getting and are getting in their kind of sports, organizations and clubs. Because one of the things that I've found over the years is that there isn't a huge amount out there, to support athletes, whether they are a junior, a senior, and what I'm also finding is also helping athletes when they finish competing, when they stop playing. So what I'm really looking for this podcast to do is to open up that door so we can discuss and talk about these types of things, and also for this podcast to be like a platform for where people can come in and listen to and watch these things and kind of learn from them and learn from advice from people like yourself, which might help them, and any young athletes who are coming up in any different sport. I think if they can hear from people like yourself who has performed at the very top, and to learn about the challenges that you had and how you tried to deal with those, I think this is a really powerful kind of tool and platform that other athletes can use to learn from you.
Yeah, for sure. So
I'd like to take you back to the beginning, if that's okay. What was it that first drew you to swimming? How did you get involved in it?
I think it was a pretty natural progression, as swimming is. I think it's one of the few sports that most people learn at a very young age. No one kind of gets into athletics or trampoline out of safety, but I think obviously water safety is so important. So I was just doing swimming lessons, and then I was at a very remote area up in Cumbria, and a family friend was the head coach at the swimming club, and a very, very close family friend. And it was a natural progression from doing swimming lessons to, join the swimming club, because that's what you need to do. and into just, kind of going through the normal stages of learn to swim into a swimming club, transitioning through. I think I loved being in the water more than anything. When I was much, much younger, I can't remember what age I was, but I was diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, which definitely the swimming and the solidarity of swimming really helped with that. It was a place where you can really be yourself and with your own thoughts and have time to process things and think about things. So I think generally to get into swimming, it was a very natural progression, the same as anyone does.
Yeah, cool. And you just mentioned there, I would like to touch on it again a little bit later on, but you mentioned there about how you were diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and how that you felt that kind of helped you, being able to, I guess, commit to a sport where it is relatively, an individual kind of environment. Really, a lot of it is you're there on your own in the water on your own. And in what ways do you feel that it actually helps you?
Yeah, well, I wasn't aware at that point I'd been diagnosed on the spectrum, so I just loved being there and just thought it was the best place to be. So I guess in a very unforced way, it was the best place to be, I guess, is the best way of putting it. But I was also homeschooled, so I think I'm very fortunate that I had an environment where socializing is kind of forced, because I think I'd be much worse at socializing if I hadn't had swimming and being in an environment where you have to work with people and be around people and so close that you're jammed up in a lane and have to move around. And I think, because I was homeschooled, if I didn't have that environment, it would have been a very, very difficult, very different story. Sorry. But swimming is a kind of perfect place to have your independence, your time on your own, to think about things for 2 minutes, and then you stop, and then you're in a social situation, and then you kind of go in between them. So, like I said, I didn't know at that point I was on the spectrum, but I think kind of being forced into that environment was probably very beneficial for me.
Yeah. I also, one of the big part of the thing that I like to do with the athletes that I work with is modeling. And there's a quote from somebody called Tony Robbins. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And he has a great quote, and he says, "Success leaves clues." And a lot of my early research, 17, 18, 19, 20 years ago, as well as the research I was doing with athletes on a one-to-one basis, I was also trying to just find out as much as I could about, those athletes that really excelled. And I would spend hours and hours, reading their autobiographies, looking for what's going on here. What really is the difference between, a Michael Phelps, a Michael Jordan, a Lionel Messi, a Cristiano Ronaldo, a Serena Williams? What's really going on there? And I learned quite a lot from just making my way through autobiographies with them talking about themselves. And part of what I like the clients that I work with to do it is to use their idols and use the athletes in their sports that they are involved in, and actually use and mirror certain aspects of their performance. And there's a very powerful technique that I use called the holographic stepping. And essentially, when you kind of take your mind down into a slightly different, lowered state of mind from what we are in now, we're in this kind of waking beta state, if you like. Just below that, when you actually imagine yourself kind of stepping into the shoes, of somebody else, you can actually gain very, very valuable information from that. And I'm wondering who were your idols? Who were the people that you, when you're growing up, who were you trying to emulate, and how successful were you in trying to do this?
Yeah. Do you know what? It's really weird. I think a lot of kids, when they're growing up, have a sporting idol that they have on photos of the wall and love and look up to or something. I didn't have one like that in swimming. Obviously, Michael Phelps was amazing, but I never got that feeling from him. I probably appreciate his success a lot more now. I'm a little bit more understanding of what it means, but I never looked at him and thought, I want to be you. I want to be like you. There was a swimmer called Kitajima who was from Japan, who was double Olympic champion in my event and the shorter distance of my event as well. So he was, I'm not a tall guy, I'm 5'8" and a bit. And he was, and swimming is generally a tall guy's game. So he was about 5'10", but technique was unbelievable. So I think that a little bit of that resonated with me. But then you're talking there about kind of having idols and then, emulating what they've got. I think the one big sporting idol I really looked up to was Niki Lauda, who's an F1 driver. I don't know if you're into motorsports at all, but died a few years ago. But I watched a film based around his story and one of his title battles called Rush. And the thing that made me connect with him was the similarities that I saw between the way that we both approach sport. It wasn't a situation of, I love your achievements and love what you've done. That was almost a bit irrelevant because of the way that he went about his business. So he was he was a walking around the track at 5 a.m. when no one was there, and he could make sure he knew perfectly where he wanted to be in meticulous preparation. And the guy he was competing against was partying the night before, drinking drugs and living a fast life. And I think I didn't connect to the achievements or the emulating of the character. I connected to the process of how he went about his business, which I think is a very different, but I guess being on the spectrum, probably that's probably one of the reasons.
I mean, myself personally, that was it. When I would as a young kid myself, when I was, kind of focusing on the athletes and performers who kind of resonated with me, it wasn't just, as you say, it wasn't just the physical side of things. It was how are they acting, how are they behaving, and that has been the key line of my inquiry really for well over the last 15 years especially, is how are they doing it? How are these people doing it? And they have what I call it, with the work that I do, internal strategies. They're doing something inside their mind, because even a habit, even just for Lauda to go and make his way through and look at the turns on the track and this, that, and the other, that's a process that he's going through, isn't it? It's a habit that he's got himself into doing, and it's something that he was probably doing from being a little kid. And I remember reading Lewis Hamilton's first autobiography, and I remember talking about how his dad would obviously be at the events with him, and his dad would purposely kind of, when he'd go around and do a lap on a particular corner, his dad would stand at the place where he thought Lewis should brake. Then the next lap, he'd stand a little bit further, keep nudging it forward. And I think these athletes that achieve true excellence, they have these habitual patterns, whether it's something like that, in the way that they prepare themselves. Another person, when you was just saying that there, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, he did the documentary Free Solo, Alex Hammond. I've not heard of that. And essentially, he's the first man in history to climb up
I've seen it.
a rock face, El Capitan. And what was really interesting for me with that is how much time he spent mentally practicing going up that rock face. He went up it hundreds of times before he ever actually did it physically.
That's a massive similarity, though, isn't it, between all athletes that perform? If you visualize what you're doing 1,000 times and 1,000 different ways, or 100 different ways, 100 times each, or whatever, by the time you get to that, there's nothing that can shock you or take you back or anything, is it? That's, I think that's one of the most powerful tools that, you've got more experience on the actual technicalities of it, I guess, but I think visualization's a common thing across many successful athletes.
Definitely. I'd also like to ask you just about yourself again, like what was your defining moment? Have you got like a moment in swimming which really kind of defined you as a person or an athlete? Something that kind of comes to mind, which goes that was a powerful moment in my life.
It's really funny. Anytime I do a talk for anyone, there's always a slide. I do a talk for a swimming club, for swimmers, for coaches, for parents. I'm doing a talk at Loughborough University about business in a few weeks' time, and there's always a slide about the moment.
Really?
It's quite funny you asked that, I'll tell you what it was. When I was younger, as I mentioned, I loved being in the water, loved swimming and doing the movements, but the hard work just wasn't something I wanted at all. And many of my friends started performing really well and going to nationals and winning medals at nationals at a young age. Probably about 11 or 12, my friends started performing really well, and I was very much left behind in terms of performance. I was making regional finals, so I had a fair amount of technical talent and technical skill, but nothing that was pushing me on to achieve really great things. And then I just, completely lazy. You would never have met a lazier swimmer ever, athlete.
Really?
You couldn't have. Anytime I could have got cramp, anytime I could have missed a session, I'd be gone. And I just remember I walked into training a Sunday afternoon. We used to train every day of the week. Sunday afternoon, and I was 13, and the set was 10 200s breaststroke. which probably won't mean anything to your listeners, but a pretty tough session.
Yeah.
And I just said to myself, I'm going to do every single possible thing I can to do this the best I can possibly do at the session, and just see what happens. And I remember I was lying on the side, like could barely breathe at the end of this session. And I just thought to myself, I thought, well, no one in this lane here is as tired or has worked as hard as I have. And I looked around the pool and thought, actually, no one in this pool can have done that. And I can see they've not done that.
Yeah.
And then I kind of started thinking more and more. And I thought, well, no one in the club has, well, probably no one in the county, no one in the country. I thought more and more. And I just thought, there's no way anyone kind of pushed the body to that level.
Yeah.
And from that day on, in anything I've ever done, swimming, not swimming, the businesses I work with now, I will do everything to my complete and utter obsession and hard work. So that is the complete defining moment. There are other quite powerful and very influential moments in my career. And if you talk about one moment to define me as an athlete and then definitely as a person, 100% that day, without any question.
Brilliant. And that quote that I mentioned earlier about Tony Robbins, success leaves clues, and that moment for you there, as it obviously was it left a powerful emotional imprint with you, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I as mentioned before, around my nature of obsessing over things, and if I like something, if I find a food I like, I'm obsessed. Like, it won't change. If I find a routine I like, it just doesn't change. So I found this feeling. I was like, well, I've worked way harder than anyone else here. I'm the best here, and that feeling I can't get rid of that now. Yeah. But it's crazy. I went from that was in the detail I can remember too. That was in October. In the regionals before, which were in the June, I finished 5th in the region and went a 2:51 on my main event. And a year on, in the July, so just over a year, I went 2:31, so dropped 20 seconds off my PB. Wow. And went from 5th in the region to 5th in country. And I always say to swimmers, the only thing I did was exactly what my coach asked me to do, and worked as hard as I possibly could. And it was a 20-second drop, 20 or 22-second drop, and 5th in the region to 5th in the nation. And that kind of progression just went year and year and year. Obviously, until you hit more of towards a senior and you start to plateau and performances slow down. But that drop just happened again and again and again for years in a row.
So that was serious.
It was so addictive.
Powerful.
It was so addictive. Yeah. Like that feeling of like, and I remember it was literally runs on Christmas Day, circuits on Christmas Day on my own in the garage, like everything I could ever do. Like I could not have done more.
Awesome.
It was really defining. Yeah.
That is amazing. And what I call that is hitting the threshold. This and that can happen both ways. People can hit a threshold, nothing to do with sport at all. Sometimes people will just kind of float along through life, and they'll look back at the end of it all and they'll have regrets because they've wasted their time. But those people who go on to achieve great things, whether it's in sport, in business, or life generally, often these people have had a moment, hit a threshold, a point where they're saying to themselves, "I'm not having this anymore." They've got to this point in their life where something happens, something triggers, and something changes. And in that moment, these really powerful emotions that they're able to create in that moment in time almost supercharges them to go, bang, this is it. I'm going all in. And that certainly seems like, what you did there. You hit this kind of threshold in your life at that moment where it's like, right, I've got this feeling and I like this feeling. I don't want to let this go. I want to keep tasting this,
Yeah, it was completely that. And as well, that around that time, I had quite a lot of, my family life was very traumatic around that age as well. And I think that was like a complete escape of like for 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day, you go and you put yourself in so much pain that I don't know, just that payoff. I don't know what that relationship was with actual pain that I was feeling from, life, translating that feeling into physical pain that you can feel, and then seeing that pay off into an achievement that was like that. Oh, that feeling is just unbelievable. It was just so good. I loved it. Yeah.
I can, and I can relate to what you were saying there. And when when I was much younger, certainly high school, and things were quite challenging in my home, let's put it that way. And sport was my safe haven. And that was the place where, when I was performing, I was, my main sport was football. And when I was playing football, it was just me, in my own world, away from everything else. And I could just express myself how I wanted to, and I could just put myself in this place where for 2 hours, that moment, that time on the pitch, it was just me, and I got so much pleasure from doing it, So just moving on then. In terms of, if you could put a percentage on how important the mental side of sport is versus the physical side, how much would you say is physical, and how much would you say is mental, in your opinion?
That's a tough one. My philosophy and my belief is hard work beats everything.
Yeah.
But also, from my own experiences and other athletes I've seen, the mental side is just uncomparable. There's athletes who I'm very close with who have achieved incredible things, whose psychology and mental approach is like nothing I've ever seen before, and that's what takes them to that next level. And also, I've trained with and been around people who the physical side is not there, the hard work is not there, but their complete delusion or self-belief or anything can make them genuinely incredible athletes.
Yeah,
they're obviously talented or whatever, but often like that can genuinely, outdo the physical side. Often, not to the extent of breaking world records and winning Olympic gold medals, but to take you to that level. I believe that people can genuinely believe they can get there and genuinely get there. Like, I've seen people who can lie to themselves so much that they genuinely believe they did that crazy hard session, that they actually did a quarter of and then got out because they weren't feeling great. They've, I've spoken to them 3 weeks later and they say, "Oh, do you remember that set we did?" I'm like, "The one you got out of," and they could genuinely believe that they've done it. So I definitely say it's hard. My philosophy wants to say 50-50, but I'd probably say like 70-30 towards the mental side of things.
Really? Well,
yeah.
So, because am I correct in that you at one point were training with the great Adam Peters? Am I right in that?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, so I moved to train with Adam when I was 17. So then I trained with Adam from 17 until 21, I think it was, when I stopped swimming. I now coach the group that I train with. So I'm one of the support coaches for Adam, and I'm in charge of all of Adam's swimming businesses that we co-own, hence the logo. So we co-own various different projects and brands within swimming that we're looking to push forwards. So Adam is the perfect example of a perfect match of genetics, work ethic, and mentality. So
I always remember, and again, he quoted a quote from that I first heard from Tony Robbins, and it was in the Rio Olympics, and I can't remember exactly at which point after which race it was, but he was being interviewed, and he just said, if you want to take the island, burn the effing boats, i.e., and I love that. I just love that quote. I'm not turning back until this is done, and the only way I'm coming out of this is that it gets done. And that kind of that quote that he gave in that interview that I saw there, pretty perfectly sums him up. Really, from the outside of obviously me not knowing him, but
and I think it's really difficult when I talk about sport, because my we talk about the mental and physical side, and it's what level do you want to reach? If we're talking about reaching a national level, physical, like hard work above anything, I think you can massively self-doubt yourself, but put you in a position to compete on a national stage. But my the group I trained with and the group I now support coach, won 6 Olympic medals, 3 of them being gold this year. And it's like my opinion of elite sport is very skewed compared to what most people's is, I think. So that just to clarify, I think if you want to get the very, very top, probably a 70-30% swing on mental to physical. But if you want to reach a national level, I think you could probably self-doubt yourself completely, but work hard enough to get there.
Yeah. It's what you're saying there about this, that self-doubt. It's, believe it or not, it's the most common issue that I find working with the athletes that I've worked with, and I've worked with athletes who are professional athletes who have performed on great platforms, and obviously younger ones who haven't quite made it yet. But if they was to take some time and look back at all the other people that they beat off to get to where they've got, no matter what stage you are, if you're competing at a national level, if you've made it into one of the football academies,
if you're competing at national level in swimming in the UK, you're in the top 2% of the swimmers in the UK.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
So just looking back on those numbers, how many people are below you at that point? And yet these people who are still up there at that level, they have they have doubts about themselves, and that doubt is a limited belief, and where that comes from is deep down they don't believe that they're good enough.
And it's crazy, because now looking back on my career, often if I'm doing a Q&A on Instagram and a young athlete will ask me a question about how do you believe, what if things aren't going well and stuff like that, and one of the best quotes I always say is we all always imagine about what might go wrong, we never imagine what might go right. That's one thing I always say. But genuinely, the amount of high level athletes that would reply to something like that and be like, oh my god, I completely agree with you, I don't know why I don't believe in myself. And I'm like, and you're competing at such high level, and still at that level often people doubt it. It's
so as I was saying, the techniques that I use help athletes address that issue, because having that belief, if you have a doubt of any kind, it is traced back to a belief about yourself or about the event or about your opponent, and vast majority of the time it's about one's self, and that belief has grown like a weed, and that weed could have started growing when you were 6 or 7, and because of how life kind of gets in the way, various different things happen, challenges at home, challenges at school, challenges in your social world, outside of inside of sport, you can be very, very confident. But if that limiting belief of not believing that you're good enough, and often it's actually, when you delve down that bit further, is they don't believe that they're worthy enough of things as well. Some people don't believe they're worthy of the success. And if an athlete has that limiting belief that's buried in the subconscious mind, it's almost like going out to perform with one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator. The subconscious mind is battling against these two things. The athlete wants to go out and win and be successful, but deep down they've got this niggle, this voice which is saying certain things, which is causing you to imagine things, as you're saying, imagining things going wrong. And the biggest shift that any athlete can make is to program the mind to what it wants, not what it doesn't want to have. And when we were speaking about visualization, it seems like it's quite a simple thing to do, visualizing what you want to happen. But when you've got into habits of visualizing the wrong thing, visualizing you coming second or underperforming, or visualizing and hearing the sound of your coaches or your family, talking to you as if you've let them down, and these types of things, it's that doubt is, as I said, it's like a weight, and until you go and get into that mind and let go of it, no athlete will ever they will even though they could go on and achieve great things, if that belief is there, they haven't even got to scratch the surface of the potential.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah.
So, and just to finally touch on it, somebody like Adam, he just doesn't have that. Is my guess. I don't know, and you will have a far greater insight to him than I. But the Michael Jordans, the Serena Williams, the Bolts, they're not stepping out into their respective arenas with that. They have.
No, yeah. I watched The Last Dance, which I'm sure you've watched and most people have now. But there was one thing that I thought was really good in it. I think they're in training, and the whole of the Bulls team were doing free throws from the half line, and every single one was missing it. And like, joking about missing it, and someone was like, "Oh, Michael, take a shot." So he picked the ball up, take a shot, and sunk it straight away. They're like, "How do you do it?" And he's like, "Well, every single one of you before you go in already knows you've missed it, because the other guys missed it, and you're making a laugh about you missing it. I've not even touched the ball. Why would I ever consider that I'm going to miss it?" And I think that is just perfect representation of that kind of belief and understanding of capabilities.
I think somebody. One of my perceptions or beliefs is that often these athletes who go on to do these great things through their own self-work, or almost, I don't know, fluke probably isn't the right word really, but they've been able to navigate their way through internally to condition their own mind to really believe in themselves that much. And often there are athletes who have that same level of ability, but they just weren't able to get there mentally. They weren't able to get rid of that baggage that the Ronaldos, that the Jordans had. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing with my business, is that I don't want somebody's self-confidence, essentially, to be the reason why somebody doesn't achieve their potential.
Of course not.
If it's that they don't want it, if it's that they just aren't quite good enough physically, tactically, that's one thing. But for it to be a mental thing, I just think it's a real shame. And this is why I've started this podcast to make people aware that there are tools and techniques out there that can genuinely help athletes get beyond that. And often the athletes have lived with those doubts, those limited beliefs for that long, that they don't know what life is like without it. And as soon as it's gone, it is like a paradigm shift in, like, why the hell did I used to think that sort of thing?
Literally, yeah. No, yeah, I completely agree, yeah.
So did you ever struggle with the mental side of performing after you had that, like, epiphany moment, would you say?
I think so, yeah. So my career went from 14, making my first nationals, like I said there, and finishing 5th, to a year of Rev Nationals without winning anything, just kind of finishing around the same, but with a big drop in PB, but I'd changed age groups. Next year, I won my first medal. The year after that, I think I broke my first British record, and that was a very, like I said, that progression was quick. Like, to 2 years, what was it? 3 years. 4 years gone from scraping regional finals to breaking a British record, which I know isn't in a junior age. That's not actually that big of a. That's not that short of a time, because people do that in 1 year often. But for me, it was year on year was dropping big time and stuff. So, and then at 16 and 17, I won the Youth Commonwealth Games, and then was put onto British Swimming funding. So it was essentially being paid to swim on a results based understanding of, if you hit your results, you continue to get paid. I was from a single parent background, and my mum didn't work due to my younger brother being disabled. So that money was actually very, very important. And I think I always had a little bit of swimming meant everything. Like I said, I didn't go to school, and around 15, 16, that swimming was the only thing I was ever going to do. It was the only route. So there, if you have a bad set, is the end of the week. Like it killed me. So everything had pressure, but I was generally just always swimming pretty well.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to my European juniors, the year I went, the time I'd gone, my funding was based on the next year's funding. Sorry, was based on winning a medal. I did the heats, made the semi-final, was bang on my PB, and was like, well, I don't know if I can make much more. I don't know if I can get much more out here. That was pretty hard. The semi-final, I was in semi-final number 2. The first one went, and everyone bar one went quicker than I had in the heats. I was like, well, got to do something. Then dropped 3 seconds in that semi-final to go into the final the next night, second. And European juniors, Russia wins everything, for probably reasons they shouldn't win everything, but a lot they win everything. And I was going in just second behind the Russian lad, and I was the first guys event that had a final that we were in, and it was literally like the 20 lads were on the team. Like, oh, you could, it's like, you're going to win. You're going to be, lads are going to start off. We're going to do it right. And I remember I did the final. Well, I woke up for the final and I was like, my legs are killing me. What's happening here? For no reason, I'd done my proper recovery strategy the night before. I'd eaten everything right, and I bottled it. And I think I went 5th in the final. I was about 2.5 seconds slower than 1.5 seconds slower than I'd been the night before. And that was a very awful moment walking back, knowing that, I could have maybe won that. I definitely could have got a medal. Yeah. But now my funding's going to be cut. I'm probably not going to be able to move down the country that I'm looking to do to try and take myself from a junior to a senior. Yeah. What am I going to do? And I remember that was awful. I was talking to my coach, like my kind of like allocated coach on the GB team then. I was saying, I'm going to be cut from funding, and oh my God, like I can't swim without this money. He's like, no, don't worry about the funding. It's fine. You've still got more events coming up this week. And I was like, no, you don't get this. Like, it might be fine for a lot of these. I was the only one athlete on that competition, at that competition on funding. So I was like, if someone else leaves theirs, it might be fine. But genuinely, if I don't have that, I probably can't swim. So that was the first time. It probably was a little bit difficult, but then it picked up fairly quick and then carried on progressing. But then the next year was a very, very defining moment in my journey as an athlete, I think. So as a swimmer, you have 2 main competitions, one in April, one in the summer, where that might be a major that you qualified for in April, or it may be a nationals or something. And the time I went in, I was 18 at this, so this was my first year transitioning from a junior to a senior. I was still on funding at this point. And in this country, in swimming, there's no junior. It's not athletics where you have under 21s, under 23s, then you're a senior. 18 and under, senior. And if you want to make a world championship or European championships or Olympics, there's 2 spaces. In my event, there was Adam, who was obviously the world record holder, the reigning Commonwealth champion, the second fastest in the world in that event, a 2-time Olympian, and a Olympic 4th place finisher, Commonwealth Games finalist. So as an 18-year-old, to make the final of British champs, you've got to be the one behind them, and to make a team, you've got to beat 5 of those guys I just named. So that was I went to my first competition there not expecting to do anything, and did a bit of a PB. And if I'd basically, my event was a 200, and it's 450s of the pool. If my last 50 had been the same as my second or my third, I'd have made the world champs that year at 18 and beaten 5 of those guys. So, I left that meet in April going, oh my God, like fix 150 in the summer at nationals, and I'm, in the top 16 in the world at 18 years old. That's going to be incredible. I then raced at a meet in June and swam so slow. I was 7 seconds slower than I was in April, which we'd often be slower mid-season just because we were tired and we weren't prepared, but that's a significant way off the pace. And I got back from that meet and then spent 3 weeks in bed, lost a lot of weight, and was very severely ill, which I hadn't realised when I was racing. And when I came back into training, it was less than 3 weeks into the competition for summer. And funding is also based off swimming faster in summer than you did in April. So I did the competition and was the fastest in. There was 4 guys in my event who were funded, who were my age or a year older. I was the fastest in there of those 4 guys. I was second fastest in my not main event, so ahead of 2 of those guys still, but was about 2 seconds off my best that I got in April. So I kind of left the competition going, look, I'm going to be cut from funding here because I've not got quicker, but like I've had 3 weeks training here, and I'm pretty happy that I've only 2 seconds off my best. And I'm very positive. Still heading into next season. And I remember when we got into the next season, and a couple of months in is when they decide funding. And I was very prepared to be taken off, as I mentioned, because I'd not achieved my target that year. And I got the letter saying I'd been taken off funding. And I messaged those other 3 guys saying, tough luck, guys. Hope you're all doing okay or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's prove them wrong this year or something. And then one by one, those lads texted me back saying, "Oh, what do you mean? I'm still on funding. Oh, what do you mean?" And I was like, what? So I'd been the quickest in April, the quickest in summer in my main event, and my second main event, I'd never been the slowest. So like, there's out of the 4 guys my age, or like I said, older, I'm performing the best by a mile. And I remember I messaged the guy who's in charge of sorting out funding for the junior transitioning senior and said, "Look, can I have a meeting with you, or could I get a little bit of an understanding as to why?" I'd always been slower than these guys, and this was my first year where I'd ever beaten them. So I was like, I just want an understanding as to why. I've done everything you've asked me to do. Granted, I was significantly ill, but can you just explain that? So I sat down, and there was a big book essentially put in front of me, which was pretty thick, about that thick, and it said, "This is all the information we've got, a data review from all your past performances, your genetic data, XYZ, blood tests, arrangement of your shoulder from 3 years ago, all those different things." Opened it to a certain page and said there was 170, and then in boxes up to 180, so 171, 172, 173, and 174 was circled, and all these boxes were in red. I said, "Do you know what 174 is?" I said, "No." And they said, "That's how tall you are in centimeters." And flicked over onto the next page, and it went up 181, 182, and it slowly transitioned from red to amber to green. And the green was the optimal height for a 200 breaststroker. And I remember, and as I said, I'd put my life into swimming, and I could not have done more. I could never have worked harder. I could never have done the details any better. And at 19, I think it was, being told that, "Well done, we've paid you since you were 16 to do this. For 3 years, the year you beat everyone else, we decided it's the year we're going to take you off, but not take everyone else. They're also going to stay on. And I was a lot more vocal probably in my younger days than I was now, but also, I've, like I said, I've worked my life for this, and so I remember I said, "What? Because someone's 7 inches taller than me, but I'm 3 seconds faster than them this year. That means they're a better athlete. That means they're a better athlete than me." And I remember I stood up, said a lot of choice words, slammed the door, and walked out. And I was very fortunate. I was training in a national centre at the time, so although I wasn't being paid, I was still able to train in a world-class facility with the best people in the world around me. But that I've never got over that when I was swimming. And I was very, very fortunate. I had family support. My grandparents were extremely supportive, to the extent that grandparents shouldn't be supportive of supporting someone's dream financially, and a few other family members as well. But like to work, for probably 5 years of dedicating your life to it, to then the people who you believe know better, you put these people on a pedestal, I think, at that kind of age, because they're at the top of the pack and have the most experience, for them to say, "Oh yeah, but you're not quite tall enough for this." It's like, well, do you know what I mean? It's like, and I never got over that for a long time, until I started my business in sport, and to be honest, started realizing that what I was doing was way more successful than their roles within the organization. I'm not sure how they feel if they saw that, but from various different aspects, and impacting the swimming and what I know I'm going to do for the landscape and the future of the sport compared to what they're doing. I didn't get over that, but I remember, that was defining, and that was a period of hating swimming. I went from loving it more than anything to I could not have hated it the sport or the people anymore.
No, I mean, that's sport is it's littered with examples of people defying genetics, isn't it? And like I mentioned earlier, the guy who I'd looked up to, who won the 2004 2008 Olympics,
was 5'10", now I was 5'8.5".
Yeah,
it's like the greatest in this event.
yeah,
He's still more decorated than Adam is. He's done 4 Olympic titles in individual events. It's like, so he was good enough because he was. But do you know what I mean? It was crazy.
That's really that's one of the thing. Another thing that I come across so much is that those scenarios as well, and the aftermath of something like that experience that you went through there, that there isn't then the support that sport is putting into place to help people cope with that. Because 1 minute you're following your dream, you're following your life's plan, and then bang, that rug is just pulled out from under your feet.
Yeah, and what I found crazy is when I see athletes being cut now, and I'm like, is it not the same situation, but similar in terms of that's stupid to take them off? I'm like, you've invested for 4 years. Yeah. What's the harm in 2 more years to get them into the senior ranks and see what will happen? And one of the lads now who I used to swim with, who now I help coach, as he was taking off funding again. A stupid decision, because he is barring the guys who are winning the medals at the World Championships. He's the next quickest. So whenever those guys stop, if they don't fund him, there's no one to take that place. Yeah. And he's now swimming out of his skin. It's really? Like, well, are you going to jump back in and now say, oh, here you go, we really like you again now? It's crazy. It's like that's why I'm so passionate about what I do now, and a lot of the work I do with Adam. All our profits are reinvested back into more projects and hopefully creating a more sustainable outlook for swimmers in the future, because it's just wrong. Like it's so wrong.
Yeah, I agree. There's a duty of care in my opinion, and in today's world, and whether that be in the world of football where there is millions and millions of pounds, or whether it's with the Olympic programs, there is money being pumped into sport like there's never been before, isn't there? And there needs to be better support programs to help people mentally and emotionally. If they're going to make that decision, they need to have a really in-depth understanding of what impact that can have, and how that scenario is dealt with in the moment, and then what help is somebody getting after that. I know a fair few athletes who they go to a bad place after it.
Oh yeah, completely. Well, as well, it's sport is. I really believe the only two things I've experienced that give you the rush at sport is sport and gambling. I'm sure there's some recreational activities that probably give you that kind of high, but and that's why sport's so great. But that's why after sport, you try and find that high. And I was talking to someone about this the other day. One of my very close friends who stopped swimming about a year ago now, and he was saying that they find it very difficult to find that even fulfillment in life. And they do a very above average job in terms of finding fulfillment. It's not a call center, it's not working in Tesco's, it's something that you do get a huge amount of fulfillment for. But the emotional experiences you feel through swimming of a good performance, going on a training camp for 7 weeks in the Gold Coast, working a year straight of every single day being held for 60 seconds to pay off because it's a 1 second PB or a 0.2 second PB. That like emotional feeling, to try and chase that outside of swimming is like it's not exactly, it's crazy.
It's as you say, it's well, people talk about that their sport as being as a drug, and the reason why it is because when you get these wins, when you get these events where you feel pleasure in that moment, whatever it may be, it's the brain is releasing dopamine, and dopamine is seriously addictive. You will, when you go and break a personal best, or when you go and win a competition, the mind will release a huge surge of dopamine, and dopamine
there's nothing like it, is there?
It's the same thing that's released when you go and, if not you, when somebody would go and inject themselves with drugs, it's the pleasure chemicals that people are searching for outside of sport, because they're not quite feeling how they want to feel. So how am I going to feel better? And they go down that road. Some people, whether it be alcohol, whether it be food, whether it be
it's anything, isn't it? I remember when I about 6 months after I'd stopped swimming, and I was having a good life outside of swimming in terms of, business was going well. I was, life was pretty good. And I remember I was trying to search for highs and things that would make me feel good, not drugs, other, experiences in life.
Yeah.
And every single time I'd try something that would try and make me feel good, there was one of my mates who I'd call on the way back and just like, mate, I couldn't believe how bad I feel. Like, I feel like I don't want to, like, I don't know even how I can experience this kind of thing. And it's like, if you're working towards, trying to compete in Olympic Games, to then, you didn't make that. Okay, how about you go and work in a warehouse? It's like, you're trying to, it's more likely that you win the lottery than win an Olympic gold. It's like when you're trying to achieve that to then get brought to there. I'm not saying that is any, insignificant job or anything like that, but the pursuit of achieving something. How is anyone meant to deal with that if you don't get supported properly? It's crazy.
So you feel that during your swimming career and after it, so if we could just ask about the 2 points, do you think during your career did you feel like the sport of swimming could have helped you more with the mental side of the sport? Could they have done more to, if you're saying, to make it to that top level, it's 70% mental, 30% physical. Well, the question that I ask the athletes who I work with, well, how much time are you spending mentally then? And the answer is often is zero. So how much within swimming, GB swimming, how much time were they developing to the mental side, to the side of developing you as an athlete and to cope with the demands of it?
So it's very different. And I know we were talking about money being invested in sport, but swimming doesn't get a huge amount of money. It sounds like a lot when you see the number and you get to spend this over 4 years, but it's not a huge amount of money. It's not being thrown around. But I was never at the place where I was going to win the country international senior medals when I was competing. So the guys at the top, so Adam, for example, if he said, I want to see the psychologist every single day, there isn't a full-time psychologist for British Swimming. It's contracted in. And the guy that is contracted in works with us in our businesses, and he is incredible, absolutely incredible. He's amazing. But that's not accessible. Because if a junior who's trying to break into the senior ranks but is on British Swimming funding says, I'd really like to see them once a week or for 2 hours a week, once for 1 hour, twice a week, whatever. He then is obviously going to, send British Swimming a bill for that cost. And, after a year of that, they're going to go, have you not won us a World Championship medal? It's like, no, we can't fund that. So it's not accessible, which is why it's one of our businesses, an online education platform where that is accessible, and every week new content's dropped. So that's why, so we, every support area you should get as an elite athlete, that's one of our businesses is delivered to you online in our online platform we built. So because for that exact thing, we know how important nutrition, psychology, parent support, we know all those things are so important. So why is that not supported at the level where it's actually going to really make a difference when you're super influenceable? And I was talking about this with someone yesterday. Children are developed between, like, I think it's the age of 12 or 15. So, development pretty much stops to a certain extent. There's crucial kind of stages where the brain is neuroplastic, which 15, 20 years ago they didn't believe. They believed that, you come out into this world, you've got your personality, and after a certain age, that's it. It's done, it's fixed, it's hardwired. And thankfully, neuroscience over the last few years has disproved that theory, and which basically demonstrates that we can keep evolving, keep growing, and keep evolving who we are as people, evolving our identities, evolving our habits. But the first key milestone is at the age of 7. And that's when I was talking about, those doubts that people have. Most people, if in life generally or in sport, if they have self-doubts, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, that doubt has come from something that happened before the age of 7.
then it goes to up to 14. That's the next kind of milestone point. And then the next one is around 21. And it's almost like, so when we come into this world, the door to the subconscious mind is just wide open. We are at the mercy of our mum and dad. What they are doing, we can't survive. We simply cannot survive without, especially our mum, for the first couple of years, we can't survive. So everything we're learning about the world is dependent on that there.
Yeah.
And once you get to the age of 7, that door to the subconscious mind, it slowly starts to shut, if you like, and it starts to get a little bit more challenging for new information to come in. So those first 7 years, that's essentially when your identity is formed. Who you think you are, believe it or not, is shaped and formed by the age of 7. It obviously can change, but you have to kind of consciously want to change it as you get older.
Yeah.
And as you're getting towards 14, that door shuts again. And as you're getting towards 21, that door, and by the time it gets to 30, it shuts pretty hard, solidly. Yeah. But again, you still can change it if you know how to, if you like. And it's about being able to have those strategies, those techniques, people that can help you make those changes to some of the things that you've learned in the past. Or sometimes when you have, the main way in which people begin to make these changes is if they have an event, a moment in life, those threshold moments, and where in that moment they've had enough of what is going on in their life, and they pivot and they change. No more, that's it. I'm not going back. I'm burning the boats, as they say. And so, what you're offering here, and I was wondering if you could, open up a little more about, your new venture with what you're doing. Could you just explain, what it is that your business is that you're striving to do?
Where do we start? So I personally, Ed Baxter, have my own private coaching business, which is just one-to-one basis, summer camps of swimming coaching, which is very detailed technique work and developing athletes, and a very personal thing, probably very similar to what you do, but from a physical aspect, probably.
Yeah.
So I've started that when I was 20, I think. So that's been going for about 3 years now, 4 years. Started that when I was 19, 3-4 years now, and that's built up a large client base with now more people coaching than just myself, which I'm very proud of, because I don't work with people who aren't the best. And then so that's kind of what I do for my personal income, and then myself and Adam have lots of different projects within swimming that we are working on. So we have race clinics, which is essentially a day where you come and spend it with Adam and the team, and you go through a swim session, a gym session, a psychology session, parent support. They're kind of a staple for us. So that's that's where we were born, and that's kind of what our business has been built off. We've got an educational platform, like I mentioned earlier, and then we're kind of now just going down. We're looking at every different area of swimming and just saying we can do that better than it's done. Really? So we've sponsored our first athlete this year. We have we're just going through beta testing of an online league. So anyone around the world can race each other and be put into the system and come up in leaderboards, not rankings, because kids shouldn't be ranked; they should be on leaderboards. We're launching competitions this year. We've got a coaches community group where we host calls, and also they get which is something we're massively big on as well, as coach support, because swimming coaches wake up at 4 a.m. or often earlier, finish at 10 p.m. Weekends competitions are 12 hours per day minimum, and they're finishing at 8 p.m. poolside for 30 hours over 3 days, and then go, "Oh, you're in for Monday morning at 4 a.m." So we've partnered with a mental health and wellbeing service who provide an online check-in service for any coach as part of our network. We're working on a big project which requires a lot of capital raise. So there's every area in swimming we're gonna go after, and we're gonna do it better. We funding is something that we're looking at of wanting to improve. Like I said, so my personal income comes from the coaching and things I do on a one-to-one basis or a weekend basis through Baxter Swimming, all the money we generate through AP is reinvested back into staff, projects, other different bits. So yeah, we're pretty busy, but very, very passionate about changing the sport and making it different, because no one has ever created a brand in swimming that is taking it forwards from the athlete perspective, because they want to make it better for athletes. So we've got an opportunity in front of us. Falks never did anything like this. He started a swimwear line in collaboration with a brand, just rebranding kit that is average and not really in the mix of even swimwear brands. So you think if someone of that profile hasn't even been able to do what we've accomplished so far, we're gonna change the sport swimming, I think.
Awesome. And when did this start then? This work that you do with Adam?
So I started my coaching business in 2018. The summer of 2018, and then I ran my own small clinic. I think I had 30 or 40 swimmers attend. And we were on a training camp in Tenerife, and I said to Adam, this was in May of 2019, I said, look, I know how to now source pools.
Were you finished
I was training
swimming at that?
I stopped swimming at the start of COVID, so March 2020.
Right.
So I'd said to Adam more away, look, I've really got this idea here, because I know how to do all the business side of it. Me and Adam always approach swimming from a different perspective. Swimming is boring, right? And everyone knows it's boring, because you follow a black line for 60,000 meters a week. We know that everyone trains 20, 30, 40 hours a week. So athletes, when they're on TV giving interviews, we always say as athletes, the sport doesn't get enough exposure. And that is as much the athlete's fault as it is the organisation of not doing a good enough job of getting out there. If you're an athlete who's just won a world championship medal or an Olympic medal, and say, oh yeah, I'm really proud, I'd like to thank my family because it's been really hard work, a lot of early mornings. Like, no one cares. You've got to make it engage and look at where the world is of football, of exciting things, of cool looking things over social media and stuff like that. That's where swimming needs to go to. And we know that. Me and Adam have got the same vision on that, and have always been loud and opinionated and said exactly what we think. And I think you can see that in our brand. So we don't just run swimming clinics. They are the best experiences you can ever have with a team around swimming for the day. And I just said to Adam on his training camp, look, I know how to do this now. If we do it with your platform, this opportunity we could do is massive. So we set 5 dates in 2019 in August, all around the country, all around England. We had 100 swimmers each day. The fastest sellout we had was 8 minutes for 100 swimmers, and I was doing everything manually. So the sign up to our clinics was a Google Doc that you had to fill in, and then I went through the spreadsheet, did every payment manually, over 1,000 payments manually, checking it, referencing it, everything like that. It was complete hell for 3 months trying to sort it all out. But we did these events and just saw how good they were when we didn't have branding. We didn't have a brand vision. We just had Adam and some people that were working on with us on these clinics. And then now we're creating a brand, and we are moving things forward. So last year we did 11 days. This year, like I said, we sponsored our first athlete, who is a double Olympic medalist as well, trains with Adam, world champion. Nice. So we're now running a clinic with him. Adam not to be there. It's have we built a brand now? Have we built an Adam fan club? And that's we released it last week, and we sold 70% of space, I think, straight away. And it's like, we know we're building a brand now that people believe that we are going to change sport for the best. And that's what we're doing. So that was 2019 summer, and 2 years or 3 years on, it's like, I can't believe where we're at. But it's very exciting.
That is awesome. It's you again, like what you've really been able to do there is transition from that world as an athlete, where you had a huge amount of purpose and drive there, a lot of it, and you've now been able to find something else which is in many respects, by the sounds of it, probably even bigger than your first one.
And I'm so, I could not be more passionate. Like, if you said to me, talk to us about what we're going to do, we would be here all night, until next week. I could go non-stop. And I was very, very fortunate that I stopped swimming. I had some good performances towards the end of my career, which kind of settled my demons I had in the sport.
Yeah.
And then that was during the time of the business is growing. I was like, oh my God, like I'm so much more excited about working on this than waking up to train tomorrow morning. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to work on these businesses. So I was so fortunate that I found the purpose before I'd even left the last one, if that makes sense. But it's been good. Like the work ethic as an athlete has just translated so well into the business. It's been perfect, really.
One of my questions that I was going to ask you is and you've mentioned it there, really, is how is your kind of life in sport, the mentality, the habits, the different traits, the different skills that, how is your former life as the athlete? How is that helping you now, would you say?
Good. The as I mentioned there, the work ethic of like relentless. The one of the issues I probably had in swimming was that I wanted to work too hard. Probably didn't allow enough recovery time. Yeah. Which has actually been a little bit dangerous in life now, because in swimming, if you go too far when you're tired, your quality drops so much. Obviously, yeah. I'm sure you just swim slower in training or whatever. Yeah. You've passed the limit and you need to recover. In the work we do now, if I work for 20 hours without stopping, it might be a little bit slower to produce work, but I'm still producing the same work. Yeah. It's text, it's building a site, it's thinking of content ideas or something like that. Yeah. And last year we had an unbelievably busy time, and there was about 3 months where I was probably sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night, and it was constant, complete. And again, being on the spectrum, I'm able to do that. Like, one of the things I can do is function off pretty much no sleep, but gets the end of 3 months, and like I was having quite serious health repercussions from doing 3 months of no sleep. So as much as it's good that it translates into being able to push us to a certain extent, sometimes I probably need to realize a little bit that it's more important to step back. But the general crossover of passion, and that's one thing I find difficult to talk to people about sometimes. I think clearly I can feel it from yourself around, you're so passionate about what you do. Yeah. When you feel that level of passion, to talk to people who haven't got that level of passion of something in their life is like, it's like
difficult, isn't it?
Like, it's really difficult. So I'm so fortunate that I can put this passion somewhere.
Like you. Even before I specifically started the Science of Excellence, I always had this energy, and I was always like working on something, and I needed something specific, really to just go bang, this is it, and really channel all of my energies, all of my ideas, all of my passions, and as you say, unfortunately, so many people don't have that, and sport, helped manifest that from within me. Without sport, I wouldn't ever be where I am now. I wouldn't have achieved the things that I have done, however big or small that they may be. It has been such a powerful life lesson, sport itself, and this is why I'm a real believer in the power of sport, whether you are an Olympian or an amateur. We need to have goals in life. And one of the big things which happened, in my opinion, during the lockdowns is, people lost their goals. People lost their purpose. And that was an issue beforehand for lots of people, but having things like what you're striving to do, and obviously what I'm striving to do, is trying to help people find their purpose, and when it's through sport, that's great. But also, one of the things that I'm passionate about is helping people when sport isn't the thing that they're waking up for anymore, and making sure that they can transition across, because we are we are driven by who we are as people, or who we think we are as people, I should say. And when, as you said, you'd kind of transitioned before your old identity, if you like, had finished. It was already growing, wasn't it, in the background? And for many athletes, they wake up every day. I am an athlete. I am a swimmer. I am a rugby player. I am a netballer. And then when their career stops, who is the am I then? I am, and they're like, oh, actually, I don't know who I am anymore. And when you're waking up each day and you're not sure who you are, you're not sure what your values are, what your purpose is, the reason why you're getting up. When that goes, people go to a dark place. And I personally think that sports bodies should be doing more to help elite athletes across all the age groups, whether your time as an elite athlete finished at 16, 18 or at 30. I personally believe that there needs to be something done there.
Yeah, and even like I remember talking to one of my friends during the start of a lockdown who was very, very talented and won counties in everything at age probably 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Didn't work hard at all, but was super talented and won everything as a young kid. And then we won a medal at nationals when we were 17 in a relay, and he was on the fastest leg, the freestyle leg, but was slower than our butterfly swimmer was to that level of us, carrying him.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him at one of the start lockdowns, and I said to him, do you still struggle with how good you were when you were 10 or 12 or something?
Yeah.
And now can't get a job because you hated uni course and wanted to drop out. And he was like, oh my God. He was like, I was so good. I was like, so good.
Gosh.
And it's like, and even when you've experienced that level of like just winning all the time and being good at something, to not have that, it's like, it's so hard, whatever age you're at.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you say about, it's not just about being an Olympian, about amateur sports. Well, one of our biggest things is so if you're an Olympian, you get to race at the most incredible events around the world and stuff like that. But if you're just a normal swimmer who's swimming at a county level, why should you not get to experience a competition where you walk out, the lights are out, and there's flames and smoke? Why isn't that a thing?
Yeah.
It's like, because no matter what competition you're at, you're going to remember that over the standard of people you were racing or the time you swam. You'll walk out and go, oh my God, but this time I went out, and when they said my name, like flames popped up either side of me. And do you want to see this photo to go with it? Yeah. That's what needs to be created in sport. People need those experiences. They don't need, just keep going. Oh, you're not made the Olympics. Okay, well, we're not going to do anything for you. Do you want to stop? You're going to swim at a very amateur level forever. It's like, where's the enjoyment? Where is? Definitely. Well, actually, they might flourish at 25. Why are we not keeping them going in something engaging and whatever? So, yeah,
definitely. When you look back over your career now, how do you feel? How do you feel about it,
Ed? Incredibly fortunate. I'm not a fan of lucky or anything like that. Certain things take luck, but I'm very, very fortunate that I trained with, when I was younger growing up, I trained with, in my opinion, the best age group coach in the country, probably one of the best in the world. Absolutely unbelievable. We had 40 members in the club. The whole club was voluntary. No, not a single person was paid for anything. Yeah. And 25% of our membership every year went to nationals.
Whoa.
With probably 15% winning medals and 20% making finals.
No one in Cumbria, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no one can replicate that in the whole country. No matter what facilities or coaches you've got, no one can do that. So I was very fortunate. For my age group coach was absolutely incredible. When I transitioned to train with Adam, Mel, the coach there, was, I coached with her. I sport coach with her. I was in Florida with her for 3 weeks in January. This weekend we're going to France to a competition, and I also went round last Saturday and had 6-siders and helped to build a desk. Like the relationships I've made through swimming, through my coaches, couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
The people I got to train with are, Adam, some of the lads I've trained with years ago are still my best friends to this day. Anyone who's in my life now is from swimming. So I couldn't be more grateful. I wouldn't change anything, probably. None of the good bits, none of the bad bits I'd probably change, because everything. I'm a massive believer in, as cheesy as it is, everything happens for a reason. So I wouldn't change anything. I look back and think I was so far off achieving what probably was capable of. I probably wasn't capable of achieving what I thought I was, which was 2 Olympic golds and a world record in my event. But I was probably capable of making senior teams if I'd kept going another 3-4 years. But I didn't want to dedicate my life to that and miss the opportunity of building a future for myself and a sport that I think I can help. So I look back thinking, the most incredible memories. 1 year, I think I did 8 countries in 1 year.
Gosh.
Like it's crazy. And I was very fortunate to get paid to do that. So I look back with nothing but positive memories, I guess.
Brilliant. I think what is really radiating from you through this screen to me is just how passionate you are and how much purpose that you've got from this mission. You've got a strong sense of mission to really take swimming up to a place that it isn't, and be part of something that is going to have a global effect, nationally. And, I'm sure being the person who you're coming across as, you've got ideas to take this, like beyond just the UK. And, it really is amazing. Like, feeling your energy. I love meeting people like you. I really do, Ed. Because it's crazy what you're saying there. Like the passion is literally if we're going to a really important meeting or a pitch or something like that, it's the approach gives me the same buzz. Like I'll have the music in the car, like blowing my ears out. I will be that like excited. I'll go into it. Like, I remember we were doing a pitch in December for something really important, and I was literally going into it like breathing the air and like I'm doing this, like I'm gonna in the same way I would when I race. Like it's such a perfect transition and conversion, I guess. But no, thank you very much for the comments. It means a lot. No, it's it hits home more because I've throughout my 41 years I struggle to find the like-minded people like this. And obviously sport is where you do find them. It naturally cultivates that mentality, doesn't it? But it really is refreshing to hear what you're kind of going after this, as you would do if you was in one of those Olympic pools.
That's what it is, isn't it? It's getting after it, it's getting it done.
It is. I want to be respectful of your time, so I will start wrapping things up quite soon, Ed. I'd like to ask you, I know you said you don't, like looking back with regrets on things like that, but I'm just wondering, what advice would you give your former younger self, which would help that younger version of you to have been an even greater success?
But first of all, don't worry about the time. I'm happy to talk as whatever's going to give us the best discussion and product. Advice. I've been asked this a couple of times lately. I think I would say if I was just telling myself younger self, I would just say it will happen, because I think I spent a lot of time worrying. Whatever age I was, I knew I was going to do something. I didn't know. I thought for a long time it was going to be incredible performances in swimming. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just always knew it was going to be something. And I think there was a phase of probably 2 years when I was probably around the time of the funding cut and various different things, where that phase was like, oh my God, I've nothing now. Like I'm on the path for nothing. And I probably spent a huge amount of time being upset and worried about being on the path to nothing. So I'd probably say to myself, just appreciate where you're at. I did training camps in Dubai and South Africa and different places that I hated, because I was so caught up in what's going on and not just saying, oh my God, I'm in South Africa and today I've just got to swim down that end 60 times as fast as I possibly can, and that's it, and I'm going to get to do it with my best mate. It's like, just I'd tell myself to just trust that everything will be okay and it will happen, and just enjoy the moment a little bit more, probably.
And maybe just a little bit more rest perhaps in there as well.
Well, I don't know, I love nothing more that feeling of I just love the feeling of the pain, and so it's a weird one, but I just loved it. I loved it.
I think have you ever heard of a guy called David Goggins by any chance?
I feel like I've heard the name Goggins.
Oh, right. Well, after this, I'll send you his book, and I'll send you some of his interviews, because you're gonna love this guy. You're gonna absolutely love it. And like, he essentially was an ex-military soldier in America. I won't bore you with the whole story about him, but essentially he tries to raise money for an ex-soldier friend whose brother got killed, and he ends up entering into a really challenging. I can't remember if it's this running event or not, but there's an event called the Badwater Marathon in America, and it's like a 100-mile run, through some mountains, and he wants to do that event. But in order to qualify for that event, he had to enter into essentially an event where he had to run as many laps around a 400-meter track as he could in a certain number of hours.
God.
And he was running, I think it was about 50 miles that he pretty much had to get in that time. And so he when he did this, he'd done next to no training for it. His nutrition, his diet, everything was, as he says, it was a complete joke. And he had a moment in that event where his body just stopped. It just stopped. He couldn't move. He said he had stretch fractures in his shins. He was vomiting. He was doing all sorts of things. And but he was adamant that he wanted to do this event and raise this money. So he had to stop for a while. And then in the end, his girlfriend, his wife at the time, said, if you don't get up, you're not going to make this time. You're not going to make it. So at that moment, he just got up and he starts walking.
Yeah.
And he's like, just getting one foot in front of the other is just what I need to do. And then in the end, this switch flipped, and it was like, if I keep just walking, I'm still not going to make it. And he was able to take his mind and his body to a place that at that time he'd never taken it before, to the point where he went from, as I said, being at the lowest he could have possibly been physically, mentally, emotionally, and then he finished it. And then the aftermath of that is that he turns himself into this ultra marathon, ultra endurance athlete. He did loads of other things. I think he set the world record for the most number of pull-ups in a certain amount of time. Because he's when you watch an interview with him, you will definitely get pulled into him straight away, and you'll understand where I'm coming from. But because of the way that he is, they've actually brought him into like laboratories and MRI scanners on his brain and things, and they've almost they believe from what they've seen in the scans and how they've measured him that he's pretty much flips the switch around between pain and pleasure, i.e. what to the average person is pain is just pleasure to him. Like, he's genuinely like getting pleasure from doing all this like insane stuff. That reminded me.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's really weird. We were on a training camp in Florida this January just gone, which I was coaching for the first time, not swimming. And I haven't swam since I stopped swimming, so over 2 years, nearly 2 years ago. And the last session we were there for, one of the guys in the car was like, "Why don't you get in and do a stand-up swim, time trial essentially?" So no. And eventually we did. We went about 32 seconds slower than my best when I swam was, which I was pretty pleased at, and it was the most painful experience of my whole life. And my gym coach, who at the time, he was my gym coach and now again works with us in a lot of the businesses we work on, was like, we've always gotten really well. We've got quite a good personal relationship as well. And we kind of finished and we had the laugh of, oh my God, that was so bad, but whatever. There was a sweepstake and everyone had put in a bit of money as a bit of a laugh, whatever. So we got over that, and we finished. He was like, "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" And I was like, no. And he was like, "You did. I can see it in your eyes. You enjoyed it." And it's so weird. Like even now when I'm in the gym, I'm in the gym Monday to Friday, and I don't know, even not to the same extent I used to, but I still love the pain and feeling. If it's against someone, especially the physical pain is like not even a factor. I remember I was leg pressing a few months ago, and like I finished my set and I didn't even realize I'd almost done it. Like I'd literally just shut my eyes and just gone to a place of just doing it over and over again. And it's just it's strange, isn't it? Sometimes that with some people that pain is pleasure, but
yeah, definitely. Did you ever have issues with sleep at all during your career? Was that ever an issue for you?
Not unless I'd caffeine or something before a race. No, never. Yeah, we swimmers nap as well. So I was, unless I'd done I remember once we were on a camp in Dubai and it was literally walking from the morning session. I put my bag down where we left our shoes and walked straight up, straight into bed. I had a 7-hour nap between the sessions, back down and back on straight, wet trunks, wet towels, straight back into the car for the afternoon session. Like, sleep was never an issue.
Brilliant. Sometimes that can be, one of the challenges that athletes face. Just been at a rest that they're investing so much into achieving what they're trying to achieve, and obviously if you have like moments where the performances aren't coming or things like that, that low level anxiety can kind of come in and stop athletes sleeping at time. And you mentioned earlier how sometimes just having, I think you were saying that there was a small period of time when you were kind of having some kind of doubtful thoughts about yourself in some way. Would you say that was something that would kind of rear its head, infrequently throughout time, or was it just an isolated moment?
No, it was over a period of time. And that came with massive insecurities. In every aspect, from being a 18-19-year-old lad anyway, to which I think often comes with a lot of insecurities to people. I'm not an insecure person in myself. I'm insecure about various things in life. I think from the way my life when I was younger, which is kind of embedded. But in myself, I'm a pretty secure person. I'm pretty confident with who I am. But through that period, there was so much insecure about it. And if anyone came at me with any form of joke, criticism, anything, it was straight away like attack, and I'll kill you to make sure. Like literally, like if you say something, I will do anything to make you feel worse than you've made me feel there, or to make you feel more insignificant than you've tried to make me feel here with a joke or something like that. So that was probably bad for about a year. But massive insecurity about everything.
Do you think whatever and wherever that insecurity, that doubt, or whatever you want to call it, do you think that did affect your performance? Did it hold you back?
Oh, massively, yeah. Because the lads who'd stayed unfunded above me never beat me again before they both stopped swimming before I did. They never beat me again. But I wasn't winning in the margins. I was winning. I was just winning. And it was almost like, even if we were in a different race, different heats, I would just be quicker. It was almost like there was a subconscious thing in me. It was like, you just need to beat them. That's it. That's all you need to do. Which wasn't a focus at all. Like, I wasn't focusing on, just beating them. I was obviously saying, "Oh, F you, I want to beat you." I deserve what you've got. But I really liked them. They were really good friends as well. So I had there was nothing towards them. It was the organisation and the people that had made the decisions. So I can't remember what the question was, but
it was just
got on a tangent.
Those doubts
affect performance.
Did it?
Like I said, I feel like I was held back, but not enough to swim much slower than I was, and prove the people who'd made the decision right. I still felt like I was proving them wrong to a certain extent. Not that I was making any dent into what I was meant to be doing of winning medals on a senior stage, but I was still proving them wrong that I was wrong, that I was quicker than the people they said I wasn't quicker than.
So you're still able to use it as a Even though
as a fuel.
That kind of that blow about being pulled off from funding, and that kind of maybe created some self-doubt there, but you still able to like almost use it in a way, you know.
I think and definitely in training that was like, oh my god, but some things my coach would say to me that would make me react to that, to then, you know, if I was dying and started to drop off in training, she knew exactly how to. She could say something like, you could see, you could like, you know, you go bright red and you could literally see like steam coming out of you because it makes you so angry. And for a training tool, that's incredible. But for a racing tool, as I'm sure you probably work with athletes in this exact thing, you know, in training, that's probably the best tool you can ever have. But when you go to a race, that needs to be left behind. So.
Yeah. Do you think that there was ever any kind of conflicting values during your swimming career? Was there any, you know, things in your life that was taking some of your attention away from becoming the athlete that you wanted to be, or was you able to go, you know, pretty much all in, or were there other external factors that you know were kind of there that could have held you back in some way?
There were lots of external factors in my life that influenced various different things, which have been more apparent actually since I've stopped swimming and have tried to live a normal life. They've been way more apparent, and I started seeing a therapist about a year and a half ago, which was the best thing I've ever done, best money I've ever spent, anything. Because that made me realize, so like, I literally couldn't recommend it enough to someone. Yesterday I was on someone's case saying you have to see someone, because I'm a massive advocate of that now. But there was a huge amount of factors that influenced my life. But like I said, swimming was my place where I went to get away from everything. So those external factors almost didn't feel like they were part of it. So actually, no relevance at all to what I did in the pool, which was why probably I loved it so much.
Yeah, that's great. What I like to ask people, I believe that we all have at least one thing, and often it's more than one. But what was your superpower as an athlete? If there's more than one, I'm more than happy for you to identify that. But whether that be like a particular technical element within your category of swimming, or whether it was a habit, a belief, a trait, an attitude, or a mental skill, what was your one superpower that you had as a
if it's one, probably the natural ability to obsess. I would probably say, because that goes to everything. Like I would say details, I would say hard work, but the obsessive trait is what made them good. So as soon as I liked hard work, it was complete obsession with it. As soon as I understood details mattered, I like even like some of the discussions I have now with some of the business stuff we do, like we'll go through 15 versions of a single graphic, and I'm like, well, that gold's, you know, 2 shades too dark, and like the obsession with details is unrivaled. So I was always good technically. From a technical perspective, I was always pretty good, which is probably why I'm quite good at I would say very good at coaching technical aspects now. So if it was 2, I'd say technical and my ability to obsess over things that I felt would progress my performance.
Cool. Did you ever have an event, a swim meet, a competition where the pressure got to you, where the moment was either too much for whatever reason, you built it up too much in your own mind, or whatever it was? Did you ever have an event, a competition like that?
Yeah, the one I mentioned earlier, the European Juniors, where I was going in final second fastest and finished. I think I finished 5th or 6th. And there's a couple of factors. You know, I think massively that was pressure, because I thought my funding relied on it. So that's huge pressure when you've got the family has no other source of income. I wanted to win more than anything in the whole world. Like I would have sacrificed, you know, if someone had people like lined up, you know, who were going to get pushed off a cliff, or that would have been there was nothing that could have taken me away from that. So that was the thing as well. But also, I'd probably raced a heat, a semi-final, and a final, maybe like that format 3 times, maybe ever.
Really?
So I think going to that, like I said, my best time in the semi-final was so much quicker than I'd ever been. And this is one thing that people don't get. You know, if I go 2.5 seconds quicker than my previous best, my body's just been to a place it's never been to before. The recovery needed off that is massive.
Yeah.
So probably the factors of massive pressure, but also not ever exerting yourself so much further than you've ever been capable of before, but then having to then go quicker the next day.
Yeah.
Probably the factor of those 2 things. But that was the one occasion that it really got to me, probably.
Yeah. And if you'd had some or more, you know, if you'd had some mental tools, techniques, you know, to help you through that, do you think that would have been a benefit for you there?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of just, like I said, in relaxing and enjoying. If I'd been sitting there as, you know, one of those relaxed Italians that you see like that and going, oh yeah, no, yeah, I'm going to swim as fast as I can tomorrow and we'll see what happens. That probably would have worked a lot better than, oh my God, if I don't do what I need to do tomorrow, I'm going to lose all my money. And also, my God, I want this more than anything in the world. So yeah, definitely the mental side would have been massively beneficial. Yeah.
Because it's such fine margins. You know, you want to be relaxed, but you don't want to be too relaxed. You need a certain level of intensity behind what you're doing. And, you know, one of the things that I specialize in is helping athletes get into the flow state. And that's where, and for different athletes and for different sports, you know, the flow state is different depending on the requirements. You know, the flow state for an archer, for example, is not going to be the same as the flow state for a rugby player because of the demands of the sport. But if more and more athletes were taught the techniques to get them into the flow state, then moments like you're experiencing there, they wouldn't happen. You know, and then athletes are free to be able to execute to the best of their physical ability, and that's why I'm so passionate about getting the techniques that I have developed out there, because it shouldn't be, you know, if you've put all that work in physically, you know, you've left no stone unturned physically, and then the thing that cost you in that moment was that you couldn't get into the right state of mind. You know, that's a real shame, and this is why I feel that, you know, whenever I ask that question, which is why I asked you at the start, what percent is physical and what percent is mental? You know, your answer there was 70-30. Then how much time within all these Olympic programs, within football, within rugby, you know, the sports that are outside of the Olympic programs, but how much time are they spending mentally? And I know for, you know, an absolute fact that, you know, when somebody knows how to mentally rehearse their way through what it is that they're going to do ahead of time, it is so powerful to be able to do that. And I work with athletes to help them anchor those states into them. So, you know, in the scenario that you're referring to you, I would have asked you, you know, well, how do you want to feel? You know, tell me 3 emotional states that you want to feel in that moment, in that event for that final. Well, I want to feel like this, this, and this, right? And then I will teach them the techniques to get them into that state. And all a state is a form of trance. You know, what people don't quite realize is that we are constantly shifting from different trances throughout the day. If you get in a car and drive for 2 hours, how many times does that 2 hours pass when you're like, where's that gone? And that's because you've gone into a trance and you've allowed the subconscious mind to take over, and it's just driven you there whilst you're thinking about X, Y, Z, or listening to music. Just like when you go to sleep, you're going into a different trance, you know. And what athletes need to know is that they can get themselves into these states, and you can fine tune them yourself, because what the mind is very powerful at is giving you what you focus on. And if you focus on what you don't want, it will give you that.
Yeah.
And if you focus, if when you train your mind to focus on what you want, it will give you that. And there's been studies and a lot of work done on the visualization and the visual sensory system, in that the mind doesn't know the difference between what is imagined and what is real. Both of us right now could imagine something really bad happening, or remember something really bad from the past, and you can remember it. And if you spent enough time thinking that thought and playing that movie inside your mind over and over again, you could get yourself back up into that state in no time. But athletes can use that in the other way. You can use this to get yourself into the state that you want to be in. And one of the techniques they use is anchoring, where I help guide them into the state, the neurophysiological state that they want to be, and then literally with just the holding of a fist or any type of trigger movement, they can literally then, once they have spent after 20-30 minutes of getting their mind and body into this state, if they literally just hold their fist, their whole physiology will light up and put them into that state that they have anchored to the holding of a fist. And if you had a tool like that going out for that final, where you had those, you start to think those thoughts, well, if I lose this, I'm losing my funding, I need this, I want this big time, and you're having that thought, all of those thoughts that you're having is driving the state. And what those thoughts are doing was bringing your state down, into like a fight or flight state, if that makes sense. And as soon as the freeze, fight or flight mechanism comes on, your best performance is it's gone. It's absolutely gone, because the flow state is the antithesis of that. It is the ability to let go of anger, let go of frustration, to let go of doubt, and just allow all those thousands of hours that you've put into practice. When you're in the flow state, it just comes out, because you know how to swim. You've mastered it down to a T. But when doubt and pressure comes in, you tense up. You're not quite as fluent and relaxed in those tiny little muscle fibers, and then the performance goes from there.
I completely agree. 100%.
And I believe that these top athletes, and there's more and more athletes, learning skills and techniques like what I offer to help get them there. But there are also some that just develop that ability naturally, that they were able to turn on flow when they needed it. Like when Michael Jordan, for Michael Jordan, what comes across from when you read and watch things about him is that if they started to lose or something went wrong, that was the trigger for him to turn on. That was bang. That was the trigger. Right, I've got to go to a different place in my mind. And even somebody like Roger Federer, people tend to forget that when he first burst onto the scene, he was a really angry player. He was smashing rackets, he was breaking things, and it wasn't until he had learned to be able to play the game of tennis in the absence of frustration and anger over making mistakes. It wasn't until he got to that point that what we now see or have seen for the last 20 years, that couldn't come into play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I'm wondering if are there these types of techniques and strategies that you're trying to bring into the programs that you're doing with Adam Peaty and the business that you've set up?
We do. All our race clinics have a psychology aspect of it, which I leave to the psychologist, who I mentioned before. He's absolutely incredible. So anything we do that is involving developing swimmers from our perspective, the AP, the brand me and Adam have got, it has a psychology element. Stuff I do as mentioned before, the private coaching stuff is generally technique based and physical pool stuff. But anything we do with AP is has a psychological aspect, because as I mentioned, we know how important it is.
Brilliant. So I've just got two last questions to ask here, Ed. Last one is second to last one is what three pieces of advice would you give a young up and coming athlete today, whether it be in swimming or just generally in sport? What were the three pieces of advice that you'd say that you'd want them to hold on to and take with them to progress themselves?
First thing that came to mind, sign up to AP Plus, which is our online platform. What would I recommend? Hard work. Learn to love the hard work, because it's tough if you don't love it. Force yourself into surrounding people you think are positive for you, and don't be afraid. I want to do it as one point. Force the crowd that you're around. You want to be around positive people, and if they're not, cut them out of your life with no sympathy. And finally, it probably would be something around psychology in terms of training that as much or to the same level you would train in the pool. Obviously, you're not going to do 20 hours of psychology a week, but take the necessary measures to make sure that thing's covered, because it, as we've mentioned, it lets so many people down.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And my last question for you, Ed, is what is your definition or meaning of achieving sporting excellence?
God, when I swam, winning Olympic gold and breaking a world record. People win gold medals at the Olympics every 4 years, but not everyone breaks world records. So I think that was the definition of success. Now, as a more understanding and with a better view of sport, a level that you can, I think, look back on and be proud of and understand that is of significance. If I look back on my own sporting journey, was it a level of success I wanted to achieve? Nothing near it. Am I proud of it? Yes. Really proud of it? No, not really, because as I mentioned, my understanding of elite sport. I spoke to Sarah Davis from Dragon's Den a few weeks ago, and we were talking about something, and I very briefly said about my swimming journey, and I said, I broke my first British record when I was 16. And she was like, "Oh, casual." And for me, that's very casual and pretty insignificant compared to the people I've been around in a different world, which I think is incredible in terms of a business which is turning over tens of millions a year, and someone who's extremely knowledgeable in her area. That was like a crazy turn. I was like, what? It's like, you just told me about a pitch that you're trying to do for how many £1 million, and it's like that. Understanding that significance is crazy. So I think my definition of success in sporting, are we talking about achievements only?
Just excellence in general. What do you think?
Leaving the sport with positive impact, because there's people who I know who have left the sport who have achieved good things, great things in terms of competing at the highest level, but have left the sport in the same or even a worse place because of the people they are. Which I think, even if you go to a county level, if you compete at a county level and don't do anything incredible in terms of winning or achieving, if 10 teammates in the club have looked up to you because you worked really hard and always turned up to training, that is leaving the sport in a better place than you came in. But if you came in with a toxic personality and tried to put other people down and had an ego that was unnecessary and hurt other people, doesn't matter what you achieve, you've not left the sport. It doesn't matter what time you go. If you win 5 Olympic golds but have been an awful person to be around and to coach and train with, you've not left the sport in a better place than you joined it. No way.
That's a great answer, Ed. And I'm a firm believer in that. We all of us as individuals should take the responsibility of leaving a mark on this world, which makes it a better place. And if that's helping change the life of one person, one person is all it needs. Then that's enough, isn't it? And if every person on this planet, helps one person, then where would we be? And so that's a fantastic answer there. And obviously, that belief that you have about that is what's significantly driving what you're doing now with you and your business with Adam, isn't it? Shape, so that when your time is done off this great planet, you have taken swimming to a place that it wasn't before you started.
Hopefully, yeah, for sure, yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to wrap things up there, Ed. I really feel that I've connected with you here. I could keep talking for a long time, talking about sport and excellence and things like that. But it's been a real pleasure, Ed, and really appreciate you giving up your time here. I know that you've given some real nuggets to current athletes, ex-athletes, and these junior athletes who are coming up, who are striving to get to where you got to. I know you kind of you're looking back thinking you didn't quite achieve what you wanted to, but I'm sure that you can still agree that you achieved some pretty damn spectacular things in that what was really a short career, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, yeah, but yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. It's been like I said, I feel like we've not just asked surface level questions. I feel like we've answered some important questions. So yeah, thank you very much for having me and sharing a platform to get my opinions out again.
Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Ed. Thank you.
The Inner Game Podcast, brought to you by the Science of Excellence. Unleash your power. Book your free consultation now.